In the summer of 1922, one of baseball's brightest young stars began to see something that wasn't there, a shadow, always in his vision. Austin McHenry was 27 years old, hitting over 300, and slowly going blind. What he didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the shadow was a warning. And he had less than 3 months to live. Austin McHenry arrived in the major leagues like a comet. Born in rural Ohio in 1895, he signed with the St. Louis Cardinals in 1918, and by 1921, he had established himself as one of the National League's most complete players. He could hit for average, he could hit for power, and he possessed a throwing arm that opposing base runners learned to respect. In that breakthrough 1921 season, McHenry batted .350, drove in 102 runs, and seemed destined for stardom in an era when baseball was America's only professional sport that mattered. Branch Rickey, the Cardinals' visionary general manager, who would later break baseball's color barrier, called McHenry the finest outfield prospect he had ever seen. This was not idle praise. Rickey was building something in St. Louis, assembling the pieces of what would become a dynasty, and Austin McHenry was supposed to be a cornerstone of that future. He was young, he was talented, and he was entering what should have been the prime years of his career. But when the 1922 season began, something was wrong. McHenry's batting average began to plummet. His timing at the plate, once impeccable, became erratic. He started striking out in situations where he had previously excelled. Balls that he would have tracked effortlessly in the outfield now seemed to elude him. His throws, once rifle shot accurate, began sailing wide of their targets. To teammates and sports writers, it looked like a slump. In baseball, slumps happen. Even great players have stretches where nothing works, where the game that once felt instinctive becomes impossibly difficult. But this was not a slump. This was something far more sinister. By mid-season, McHenry finally confessed what he had been hiding. He could not see properly. There was a spot in his vision, a dark patch that obscured his sight in crucial moments. When he stood in the batter's box, he could not track the baseball clearly as it left the pitcher's hand. When he pursued fly balls in the outfield, they would vanish into that shadowy void, reappearing too late for him to react. His depth perception had deteriorated. His world was closing in. The Cardinals sent him to doctors. In 1922, sports medicine as we understand it did not exist. Teams had no athletic trainers, no specialists, no protocols for managing player health beyond the most obvious injuries. The physicians McHenry consulted were general practitioners, men trained to treat influenza and set broken bones, not to diagnose complex neurological conditions in professional athletes. They examined his eyes. They found nothing obviously wrong with the structures of the eye itself. Some suggested he needed rest. Others implied the problem might be psychological, a mental block rather than a physical ailment. McHenry tried to push through. He continued playing, even as his performance declined further. By July, his batting average had dropped sharply. He was benched for extended periods. The St. Louis newspapers, which had celebrated him as a rising star just months earlier, began publishing speculation about whether his career was over. Some writers suggested he had lost his nerve. Others wondered if the pressure of expectations had broken him. On July 31, 1922, Austin McHenry played his final major league game. He went hitless. After the game, he told Branch Rickey that he could no longer continue. The blind spot had grown larger. Headaches, severe and unrelenting, had begun to accompany the vision problems. Something was catastrophically wrong, and everyone finally knew it. McHenry returned to his home in Ohio. His condition deteriorated rapidly. The headaches intensified. His vision worsened. Within weeks, he was experiencing symptoms that went far beyond what could be explained by eye strain or exhaustion. He suffered from severe vertigo. His balance failed. His health declined in ways that frightened his wife and family. Finally, in late October, weeks after his last game, doctors performed a more thorough neurological examination. What they discovered was both an answer and a death sentence. Austin McHenry had a brain tumor. Specifically, he had a large, inoperable mass growing in the region of his brain responsible for processing vision. The tumor had been growing for months, possibly years, slowly pressing against the neural tissue that allowed him to see, to judge distances, to track moving objects. Every swing he had taken at a baseball, every ball he had pursued in the outfield, every throw he had made during that final season had been accomplished while a silent killer expanded inside his skull. In 1922, neurosurgery was in its infancy. The techniques that might have offered even a slim chance of survival did not yet exist. The diagnosis was final and absolute. There was nothing anyone could do. Austin McHenry died on November 27, 1922. He was 27 years old. The autopsy confirmed what doctors had suspected: a massive brain tumor, untreatable and ultimately fatal. The shadow he had seen was not metaphorical. It was the physical manifestation of his own brain being destroyed from within. The baseball world mourned, but the story of Austin McHenry quickly faded from public memory. In an era before round-the-clock sports news and year-round celebrity athletes, careers could vanish into history with shocking speed. Within a few years, most fans had forgotten the promising young outfielder who had died so suddenly and so young. But McHenry's case had consequences that rippled forward through time. His death became a cautionary tale for professional sports teams to take athlete health more seriously. The Cardinals and other teams began instituting more comprehensive medical examinations. The idea that a player's physical condition could be monitored, that warning signs might be detected before catastrophe struck, began to take root. Medical researchers also took note. McHenry's case was documented in medical literature as an example of how brain tumors could manifest through very specific, localized symptoms before progressing to more severe and obvious signs. The pattern he exhibited: vision problems, followed by headaches, then rapid neurological decline, became recognized as a diagnostic sequence that doctors learned to identify. Today, Austin McHenry's story endures as a reminder of baseball's human cost. His statistics remain in the record books: a career batting average of .302, accumulated over just 4 major league seasons. But the numbers cannot capture what was lost. They cannot convey the talent that died with him, the seasons he never played, the championships he never pursued. They cannot measure the grief of his widow or the trajectory of a sport that was forced to confront its own indifference to player welfare. Austin McHenry's legacy remains, remembered by baseball historians and Cardinals fans to this day. Asterisk. The shadow in his eye was trying to tell him something. By the time anyone listened, it was far too late.